just show up and gather the spoils. Just show up and gather the spoils, the bounty. The text has its setting with a conflict between several nations which have collaborated to destroy the children of Israel.
Yes, sir.
I took a look at who they were, and two of the characters in this text stood out.
All right.
Ammon and Moab.
Yes.
And I thought about them, and I said to myself, aren't they Lot's grandchildren?
Come on, all right.
Wasn't that nation the product of incest? I said, yeah. Yeah. And then I looked at Jehoshaphat, and I thought about this great man who had some fears. And you know, what came to my mind, it is good to recognize your ability. And a lot of us will think that we are greater. We're a wonder in our own eyes. And so I thought about that, and I recognized that Jehoshaphat, he exhibited good leadership because he recognized what he could do, and he recognized what he couldn't do. Some folk take on tasks that they know they can't handle.
Watch it.
And so it's interesting that this person realized that it was in over his head. And so I like the path that he took. And if I was to advise any preacher who would endeavor to take on this gospel, to take a page out of this man's book, because he exhibited good leadership. First of all, he assessed the danger. And he then, after assessing the danger, he then began to call his people together and began to tell them, let's pray. Let me say to you that when you can't do anything else, you can pray. It does not matter how difficult the challenge. You can still do something. You can pray. There is power in prayer. Now, I looked at this, and the first thing he says in verse 6, he says, you're a God of our Father. He recognized that his fathers recognized and called upon God. Israel was a monotheistic nation. God spoke to them in Deuteronomy and said, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is. He is a monotheistic God. Then I thought about theology, and I thought about those of us who think that we are self-sustaining, autonomous, self-ruled, self-governed. But Israel recognized that they were a theonomous nation. Theonomy. Most Christians, if you are true, you are a theonomist.
Well,
Because you recognize that God rules.
yes, sir.
Theonomy deals also, it runs into heteronomy, which means that there is a head over you. Some governments are heteronomous in the sense that the king rules.
Yes.
We believe that God is our ruler. And that he rules. And so here the text says that you are our God. You're the God in heaven. First of all, the heavens is your throne and the earth is your footstool. So he recognized that God rules and super rules in the affairs of men. It is important for us to get our priorities lined up and say, wait a minute, there's some things that I can do, and then there's some things that only God can do. And so the text now, he begins to talk to God, and he begins to say and tell God about how powerful he is. God is the omnipotent God, and he talks about God and his power and how that God pulled the children of Israel out of the land, and he began to tell them. Let me tell you something. If you want God to do something, just remind God of what he did. And listen, God does not need you to tell him how good he is. He already knows that. But it's so nice for him to hear you say, you're a good God. And you know what? He also needs to hear you say, I love you, Lord. Children learn this very early. When they want something from their parents, they say, I love you, Mommy. I love you, Daddy. It just melts your heart. Opens up your wallet. And so Israel tells God about how good he is. And he reminds God of who they are. We're yours. And so now he begins to talk to him, and he says, remember he said that you're the God of our father. And in the text he talks about being a friend of Abraham. God and Abraham on a good friendship line. And I think that we ought to adopt that. We ought to be friends with God. Listen here, you ought to call him up and talk to him even when you don't want anything. I ask the question, have you talked to your friend today? Don't tell me you were too busy and you were going to pray, but you didn't have time. Your friend, if he is your friend, wants to hear from you. I'm going to hasten to run on through this text, hopefully leaving so that my colleagues can come behind and clean it up. And so notice something in the text. He says to them, you do not need to fight in this battle. All right. This congregation does not require your participation. You can be a spectator in this battle. You do not need to involve yourself. You do not need to inject yourself into this conflict. Because the battle is not yours. The battle is God. Now when I saw that kind of got me there. These are two humans encountering each other. But God says that this is my battle. Okay, then if this is God's battle, then why are there human involvement?
Yes, sir.
I want you to know that many things that are happening around us are orchestrated by evil forces. And so if the devil is involved, God's got to get involved.